All right. If I could get a motion that we only discuss those 8 items we went into closed session for. 3 items under Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, or appointments. A, town attorney. B, planning commission applications and reappointments. And C, council and town manager appointments. And 5 items under Virginia Code 2.2-3711A8, consultation with legal counsel retained by public body regarding specific legal matters, requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. A, J.S. Pulaski Properties LLC UDAG loan. B, Hogan's Dam deed restrictions. C, Calfee Community and Cultural Center request. D, IDA update and modifications, and E, EIN number.
So moved.
Second.
And may I have a roll call for that, please, ma'am?
Mr. East?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. Ratliff?
Aye.
Mr. Klontz?
Aye.
Mr. Reese?
Abstain.
Okay, first on our agenda tonight would be Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Reese, followed by the invocation by Councilman East.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you'd like to join us in prayer, please bow your heads at this time. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your continued grace and mercy this evening and ask that you would guide us in all matters. Please grant us wisdom, and may all we do be pleasing to you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Okay, I'd like to welcome our guests that are here and online. Thank you for being here. Okay, next thing up is modifications to public session.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we add an additional resolution, Resolution 2024-03, to the agenda concerning the appointments to the Planning Commission.
Second.
May I have a roll call for that, please?
Mr. East?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. Ratliff?
Aye.
Mr. Klontz?
Aye.
Mr. Reese?
Aye. And Mr. Mayor, I move that we modify the agenda to add Resolution 2024-04 concerning appointments to the Economic Development Authority for the town of Pulaski.
Second.
And may I have a roll call for that, please?
Mr. East?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. Ratliff?
Aye.
Mr. Klontz?
Aye.
Mr. Reese?
Aye.
Where will they be?
It's going to go right after number 9.
Oh, though, you know what? I think I might need to modify that because I think we need to do the ordinances on 10 and 11 before we do the resolution. As if
All right,
we're,
so it'll be
in order to appoint people to the Economic Development Authority, we need to have renamed our Industrial Development Authority to the Economic Development Authority. Is that everybody?
So we'll put
So just move that to what, it'll be 13, but because we've added one in between. But I just think we need to do it that way, though that's not the sort of normal course.
right.
Do we get votes on all that? Do we need to do that again, or I think that's?
I think it's just about the positioning of where you're
Yeah.
doing it on the agenda, so I would think.
I think that's within the mayor's discretion.
Okay.
And when it comes up, you'll probably need to just double check and change that ordinance number if I'm not, on number 10 and 11, yet I think you have 2023.
Yeah, they're ordinances, though, instead of
Right.
resolutions, so will they be okay?
Well, I think they say 2023. I think it is the.
Oh, I got you, 2024, okay.
Their actual ordinances are correct.
Yep, okay. So we'll put this one over here, so resolution. Okay, clear as mud. All right, next up is our presentations. They have 15 minutes for each one. The one that I have is Pulaski Area Transit. So, Monica, if you'd like to come forward.
If everyone
everyone's doing fine this evening. It's turned off awfully cold, unfortunately. So just to recap of when I was here last is that we have, the consultants have been chosen to do our study, which will be the Transit Development Plan study and the Micro Transit study. So the consultant that was chosen was Kimley Horn, between Darlene and myself and the staff at the Agency on Aging, Jennifer and Tina, and the DRPT staff. We felt by a good margin that Kimley Horn was the best for that study. They had more studies on doing TDPs before, but they were also more rural area, where the other consultant was more big cities. So we just felt they were the best. And Kimley Horn also worked with us in the past when we did our studies for the expansion route. So I'm waiting to hear back from them so that we can get that study underway. And again, at that kickoff meeting that we had to choose that consultant, they did assure us again it would take a good 10 months to get that study done. So hopefully in the next few weeks, we'll be getting that underway so that we can look and see what's the best option for the transit and to help the transit continue to grow.
Monica, could I just interrupt you, and I apologize, I did want to make the point to the council that I did in that conversation insist that as they had public comment and input on the study, that I felt like you all as a council would want to be participants in that process, whether that's a separate meeting for you all or what, but that given the council's concern and questions in the past, I thought that was going to be critical, so it wouldn't just be, shouldn't say it that way, it wouldn't be only citizen input, but would have some council input as well. So, and I think everybody was comfortable with that
yes.
suggestion.
Yes.
So I just want the council to know that that would be an expectation as part of the study.
And I think, as Darlene says, and I'm glad she brought that up because I failed to mention that, but I think that's very important that we have some meetings with some, if not all of you, but some of you all in this whole process, the public hearings and all. So moving forward, I'll make sure, I guess I'll just send it to Olivia until I get the new contact for that. And so we were trying to still different ways to promote transit and help people understand how our bus stops work. So we're thinking about implementing some stickers to put on each bus stop that would say, like the two routes here in town, the main routes have stickers put on them that say there will be a bus at this stop every 30 to 45 minutes. And then on the two feeder routes, that will have a bus there every hour. That way, if somebody's just walking by and's not familiar with us, they'll know how often those buses come. So we're in the process of doing that. And I've also thought about getting some signage for our one bus, that's the ADA bus, because it may go by, say, the library on its way to pick up someone for an ADA trip. So then anyone can see it. I've been guilty of it too at our new office, to call my dispatcher and say, hey, why didn't the bus just stop here at the library? And I come to find out when I tell him what bus it is, or he'll get on the radio and say, who just was there? It's the ADA bus. So if we get magnets, we can put a magnet on the back, and on both sides it says something to the effect, this is the ADA bus and does not stop at all stops, just to make people more aware that that bus doesn't stop at a bus stop while it's not stopping at a certain bus stop. So I'm looking at that. I've already been working with sign systems on that. So hopefully in the near future, we'll implement both of those. And again, I thought Jamie was getting ready to say something, but sorry. So again, I know you've all heard me say this over and over. I just feel like public transportation is like a road, like an infrastructure. It's there if it needs to be used. And like this morning, we did start a little late, but I felt it was important that we're still out there and try to pick up people if they're needing to go somewhere, especially if it was bad and cold. So we're still there if people need us. And as we talked the last time, our DRPT grants will be due on February 1st for the year 2025. And so we're gonna request 2 replacement computers that will have met their useful life in 2025. Our IT suggests that we replace those as they end their useful life so that we don't have issues down the road. And so those would be roughly $1,600 each. We talked about replacing a motor that we had just recently found out that needed a van that needs a motor. And we're talking with Patrice at DRPT, she also suggests that because we're not getting new vehicles, or we're not going to ask for new replacement vehicles in 2025, that we do a part replacement. So she suggested that we also maybe ask for a motor or 2 and a transmission or 2 in a grant. That would be money just set aside in a grant, that if we need it for those kind of things, we would have the funding for it, without having to go into our operation expenses. That would, we don't put that extra padding in those in our budget. So if we had that on hand and we run into those kind of issues, we would have that set aside already. And then the PAT operating budget. Do you have that to put up?
They have prints.
Okay, so the printout that I had sent that showed the actual 23, 24, and 25 years, you'll see for the projected 2025 that our total was $838,012. And again, if you look, I think I had it highlighted. So those line items that have increased is salary and wages, insurance. I think uniforms had went up a little bit. So again, there's not a whole lot of padding in our budget. Even though insurance continues to go up yearly, I will commend our drivers. They're still providing safe, reliable transportation. Knock on wood, no major accidents that we've had to report to the insurance for it to cause it to have to go up. No workman's comp insurance. So,
No claims.
yep, no claims. And so I had sent you all that to see just what the actual was, what's budgeted for this year, and then what we're projecting for 2025. And and again, the grants are due on February 1st, so we'll be asking council for their match this year, which is a little bit of an increase of $83,431 that'll need voting on tonight. But before that, I want to back up and say, so as you all have seen in the past, and each time that we send the expenditure sheet, the cost per rider is $26.43. But if you look at it overall, the federal covers $13.22 of that. The state covers $8.99, and then that leaves the local match of $4.22 per rider, and then the overall trip per mile is $3.10. And again, we're having our golf tournament will be in May. Forgot to look at the day for sure. May 15th. It's the third Wednesday of May, and those proceeds we put towards the match for the town's local match also.
Can I ask a question about the state fund? So the federal assistance is just 50% of the total operating costs. So that's just and that all still flows. You don't get a check. You get checks from DPRT, right? So that all still flows through DPRT. And then I noticed that the amount you have budgeted for 2025 is the same to the dollar as it was for 2023.
That's because we never know. So
Oh, okay. So
hopes it will be as much, but
because it did drop.
it did.
Okay, but you're expecting it to go back up based on conversations. Okay, and since they're providing like 80% of the funding, if I did the math right.
DRPT?
Yeah, I mean between the state and the federal.
Yes.
Okay, so our contribution's about 10%. Okay, and when we get the micro transit study done, then DPRT will authorize you to use that 80% on the door-to-door type services if that pans out in the way we are hoping it does.
Yes.
Okay. And do we know if that's going to include like trips just in town or trips throughout the county or trips from like, I'm just thinking, I was looking at like, how do I get to Radford if I didn't, and how do I get to, New River Community College? Is that something that would be within the scope of the microtransit study?
So probably not as in-depth on that Dublin Fairlawn route
Okay.
because that's a whole separate route.
Okay.
So it would be, that would have to have its own study done to see if there needs to be additional stops or more stops taken
Okay.
away.
And that's the DPRT requirement, basically. If you want to change the routes, they need to, since they provide the lion's share of the funds.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So when do you anticipate, and I think you may have mentioned at the last meeting that you were here, when do you anticipate the micro study being done? Microtransit?
The consultants were just hired. The Kimley Horn consultants were just hired.
Right.
So hopefully in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we'll have our first meeting with them. And I've already, they've been notified, so we have their scope of work, so we saw that. And then, but I already told them that the sooner the better, that we need to get this underway.
And can you briefly kind of summarize what that microtransit study is?
So the,
And what the goal of that study is, more importantly?
So the TDP is all in with this that DRPT is paying for, and again, that's the Transit Development Plan. So that's a study that has to be done. It shows what our 10-year goal will look like, or what we project in 10 years. So they'll do this study,
As far as ridership, what you project?
that and how many vehicles, and do we have
Just the
any-
overall
Right, do we
organization?
plan to
Okay.
expand or
Thank you.
just all that in general? And then with the microtransit, they'll look at it more in depth, in the town of Pulaski, and they'll look at surveys, and again, they'll do their own surveys and studies also. But then they'll look at riders or see where we're not going. And as Patrice said, it might not be microtransit, it might be a different kind of transportation option that they give it. So it won't so much be, they'll look at it as a big picture and not just as microtransit to see what would be the best fit for the town of Pulaski.
Monica, did you have an opportunity to contact Roanoke to see how they were implementing an experimental microtransit on weekends and particularly Sundays, to see how they were funding that in mid-cycle?
Not with Roanoke. I had talked with some more outlying areas that had just gotten it started, Bay Transit and MEOC.
Yeah, well, this was an article that I sent you from a newspaper where their transit system is offering a demand service.
Right, I did see that, but I wasn't able to get in touch with anybody yet about that.
And I
Question here for you on, I'm looking at the insurance here, from 23 to 24, got a 12,000 increase, and you projected 25, almost 15,000. Do you guys go out for a bid on that, or you just stick with the same insurance company? Is that what that is? Insurance is on
It
vehicles?
is.
You go out for bid on that periodically, or to try to, I'm sure you do. You're not far from $100,000 just to buy a van. That's huge.
But that also includes workman's comp.
I was getting ready to say that, yes.
That's a big chunk of that, I'm sure. Maybe even
Every year.
maybe even bigger than the vehicle insurance or general liability.
It's about the same.
Okay. And that workers' comp, that's all state mandated dollars and cents, right? Do we? We have to have workers' comp, right? Just like the town does. Well, maybe the town doesn't, but you all do. And then there's certain minimum requirements you have to meet. Okay.
We are required to have workman's comp.
Okay. I just wasn't sure. I didn't want to say something I didn't know.
A follow-up to Mr. East's question. I understand that the micro study is going to start in 3 to 4 weeks. What's the expected span of time that study is going to run?
So DRPT said up at least 10 months.
So it'll be 10. Okay, so it'll be end of the year before you get the results.
Yes, but they also know that we want to have the final results before grants open next year. So if we need to, that will tell us how we need to apply for funding for that 2026 year.
And just curious, along the lines of what Mr. Ratcliffe was asking, so I noticed in 23 to 24, your salaries actually went down 14,000, but your projection has them to go up 58,000 this year. What's the
Well,
difference?
these are budgeted for '24, so that was done a year ago, and before we even had that actual in the '23. So that could be larger in '24, and we would just have to pull from another line item.
So does that mean you expect your 24 to be the 490?
Probably somewhere in the middle of there. Not quite that, because we did factor in for that minimum wage increase with the 490, and that would not happen in the '24 year, so it's not gonna be, it's gonna be closer to the '23 number, I would say.
If what would cause that number to fluctuate if the routes are set times and set days?
So it should be pretty close to the same. However, when you have, I think there
There were 2 increases and later in the '23. So those will be in effect all year for the '24, so it will be higher. And then for the '25 projections, we took all the hours times the increase with the minimum wage. It's like a dollar.
And is that because you all have to do this budgeting so far in advance? So if the General Assembly decided to lower minimum wage, for example, which they won't, but that would change, but it wouldn't come into effect, and that's why there was that mid-year change between the 23 and the 24. So did I hear you right? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
That explains it.
So the 23 was well over what the budget was for 23.
Yep, yes,
Okay.
yes.
we had to have that
Next.
2 salary increase, minimum, the wage increases for the drivers that year because they went up like 6 months apart or to get them to stay. So, and our transit drivers do get paid a little bit more than minimum wage just to keep, just that keeps them driving, and we don't have a big turnover of drivers, so, but they don't make that much more than minimum wage.
Thank you.
Is it, and I was just kind of looking at these numbers, and so there's been a $100,000 increase in the projected budget in 2 years. It's effectively $50,000 a year. And you had mentioned that it's, the cost, I realize the federal and state picks up a lot of that $26.43. But would you agree that if you could drive that cost per rider down from $26.43 to something less, then your budget would relieve a lot of pressure on your budget? Would that not be true? My thought is this micro transit study, I think and I'm just from looking at the numbers, it really needs to focus on that. And I'm sure Kimley Horn is aware of this, but I would love to hear their approach to the process, since the town does help fund it. But it seems like their approach would be to drive that $26.43 per rider down to something. And maybe that's the intent with an on-demand service. But if you look at the expenses on the vehicles, whether it be gas, maintenance, running in circles continually is a lot of gas and a lot of maintenance. So I'll be curious to see what the microtransit study yields. And if you have an opportunity to input as to what you might think is important, you may just mention that $26.43 per rider.
We will, but Jennifer can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when we were doing even the more on-demand door-to-door, the cost was still, it didn't affect that cost that much. When everything was factored in, it was still about the same to do it, either the way we're doing it now or the way we were doing it when we were doing curb to curb.
Wouldn't additional
But
riders drive that cost down for?
I mean, it would definitely on paper, but the expenses would be the same. You know, I mean, because it's gonna cost the same to operate the vehicles. Just because more people are riding would definitely not do that, but
Demand
a
service
different
would not
way.
necessarily have the
That's-
vehicles driving the same number of miles.
Correct, but just
Or would
increase
the
it.
schedule necessarily be the same?
Correct, but increasing the ridership, you know, would not change that, but changing the way of offering the service could possibly change that.
Right. So it would impact the motor fuels as well as the repairs, I would think. The vehicle repairs. I think you'd admit somewhere here is $20,000 for an engine. So, I mean, if you're doing an on-demand service, you have a vehicle sitting somewhere, not burning fuel, not wearing tires, not wearing out an engine or a transmission, and then when somebody calls, you go get them and you take them to their destination. So you don't have that continuous.
But I
loop.
think
That's
the-
the only thing I'm
The
saying.
problem with that is, and the only reason I would think this is when we had the oil business, is you go and pick somebody up and when you come back, this person called next door. You know what I mean? That's a problem too.
Well, and then the other bigger issue is if you've got on demand, you need to use smaller vehicles. Like that, Ms. Bertram sent us a community in North Carolina that switched totally to on demand. And I looked into it and the price per ride was $2.50, which is significantly more than we pay. And the total budget for that community was actually somewhere north of $2.5 million. And that was a bigger community than ours, but not 4.5 times bigger or whatever, or 3 times bigger. And it was a condensed area. And I think that like the Roanoke provides somewhere in the neighborhood of $1.8 million. That's their local contribution to the transit authority there. And that transit authority covers more than just the city of Roanoke, right? It's a whole valley. And I was also looking at the Virginia Breeze, which is the intercity bus that the state sponsors. And that's like a $50 ride and it's all subcontracted out. And that still requires $1 million. It's 50% funded by the state government.
Yeah,
and that's considered a runaway success.
Right, and I appreciate that, but just focusing on what I see in front of me here, it seems there would be a lot of room for improvement. If you just look at it, with the technologies today, if you think about the fact that, to the mayor's comment, if you drive, you go pick somebody up and then you drive back and then the person next door wants to be picked up. Well, if you have using technology, that should never happen. It would all be real time.
True. But I actually,
anyways,
I looked up the
needs.
Lyft rides because I was curious if you could even find like a Lyft or an Uber, and just to take it from my house to Food City was like $18. So it's not. It seems like a lot, but then and that's with a lot of that cost being slowed off onto the taxpayer, anyways, through weird stuff that Lyft and Uber do with their accounting. So we need a vote, right? Mr. Mayor, I move that we what's the term? Should we sort of we appropriate, but we're not actually appropriating it now. We're just sort of
Well, you are committing to appropriating that amount in the budget process.
in the budget process for next fiscal year.
That's correct.
Okay. So, Mr. Mayor, I move that we commit to appropriate $83,431 for the Pulaski Area Transit for the 2025 fiscal year.
Second.
Okay, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. East,
No.
Mr. Clark,
No.
Mr. Dawson,
Aye.
Mr. Ratliff,
Aye.
Mr. Klontz,
Aye.
Mr. Reese.
Aye. Sorry.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be safe going home.
I would just point out to the council that your current appropriation is $70,000, so that's a significant increase for this.
Thank you. Be careful going home.
I
All
also
right.
want to remind you that your Public Works Department services those vehicles. So, and we also give them access to the town gas pumps. So that's another way that we are hopefully seen as assisting the operation.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is our public hearings. The first one up is case number 20, is it 2023? Is that still right? Okay, 2023 ZA 006, amending section 11.2, medical office definition of the Town of Pulaski zoning ordinance, ordinance 2024-01. So could I get the staff report, please? Sorry, my mind went blank.
So, in middle of last year, we rezoned Lee Highway 2460. And in that process, it was found that the town did not have a definition for the use medical office. I think it was back in, I think it was August, we rezoned that property and also brought the definition of medical office to the council for adoption. It was adopted, but it was also recommended back to Planning Commission to consider the language, particularly around the term substance abuse disorder services, and clarify what was meant by that. In response, after careful consideration and discussion with the town attorney, as well as members of council to clarify the concerns that were presented, the commission presents a solution that is twofold. The first part, which we are discussing now, is to amend the word services to clinics. This will correspond with a definition that is for for substance abuse disorder clinics, that will clarify that phrase in the town ordinances.
Does the council have any questions?
No.
Why don't you, Summer, explain the second one, because they kind of go hand in hand so that the council can kind of understand how one relates to the other?
Okay.
If you find that acceptable, I think it would make it a little bit clearer.
Okay, so in discussion, it was determined that it made more sense, rather than trying to clarify part of a definition, rather just to define the ambiguous term. The definition which was presented for substance abuse disorder clinics is an outpatient establishment where patients receive diagnoses, assessments, treatments, and follow-up care for suspected cases of substance abuse or abuse disorders which dispense and administer controlled substances on the clinic's premise and that are not available to non-patients. With this definition, the town attorney worked with the commission, as well as, like I said, council members providing input. And this phrase was, should, it is believed, clarify that ambiguity of what was meant by substance abuse disorder services, and the concern that that could include a wide array of things, and that this is, the intent of this is to limit a specific form of use, not, or business model, not to limit all access to substance abuse things like Nicorette gum or other things that are readily available over the counter.
So does council have any questions before the public hearing? And you might add also that they did all approve right?
Oh, yes, commission recommends both of these to council, as is in the packet.
Okay, so I'm going to open the public hearing for case number 2023-ZA06. Do we have anyone that would like to speak at that? If not, I will close that public hearing. And then any other questions before one of you makes a motion to accept it? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 2024-01 as written.
Dash 02
Wait.
or 01?
One first.
I think we need to do one at a time.
Okay.
We need to do the public, we did the public hearing for the first one, and then we do the,
I follow you.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah.
Second.
And then can I have a roll call for that, please?
Mr. East,
Aye.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Dawson,
Aye.
Mr. Ratliff,
Aye.
Mr. Klontz,
Aye.
Mr. Reese.
aye.
Okay. Yeah, it changed. The numbers changed. So then the second one is case number 2023-ZA-007, adding the definition substance abuse disorder clinics to section 11.2 of the Town of Pulaski zoning ordinance 2024-02. We've had the staff report, so if you have no other questions, I'll open that one too. Okay, open that one. Then I will close that public hearing. And then if there's no other questions, if someone wants to make a motion to accept that.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept ordinance 2024-02 as written.
And may I have a roll call for that, please, ma'am?
Mr. East,
Aye.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Dawson,
Aye.
Mr. Ratliff,
Aye.
Mr. Klontz,
Aye.
Mr. Reese.
Aye.
All right. Next is Resolution 2024-01, appropriation of funds. Ms. Bertram, do you want to explain that one, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, as is indicated on the resolution, there are two accounts to which funds are being added. One is the VACO VML investment account. That's interest that we've earned in placing our money into that account. And the gentleman who met with you all in December at your meeting in May, the presentation is a representative of that group, and we're drawing slightly over 5% interest on our funds at this point, and we'll be using some of those funds as part of our efforts to do the compensation adjustment that we did with the bonus the first year. And the second item is funding for change orders that have been approved with the Phase 1 Calfee project. And those funds are coming from the Calfee Community and Cultural Center as we have required them to be responsible for those additional funds, since we have already authorized the full expenditure of the grant funds that we received. So those funds are being transferred via this resolution to that same project account.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution 2024-01, appropriating funds.
Second.
And may I have a roll call for that, please?
Mr. East,
Aye.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Dawson,
Aye.
Mr. Ratliff,
Aye.
Mr. Klontz,
Aye.
Mr. Reese.
Abstain.
Resolution 2024-02, appropriation of funds to employee expenses. Ms. Bertram?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I believe that when I sought the council's support for the bonus that we provided to employees, I indicated that we had identified additional revenues above and beyond what was currently appropriated to the budget in order to deal with that expense. And so you'll see multiple counts here that are listed where we have more than exceeded what was anticipated as revenue for those accounts for the year, and so we have subsequently suggested they be appropriated to the line item employee expense, which is where that particular bonus was paid from.
Just curious, what was the driver behind machinery and tools being so much higher than projected?
Really an unknown, because at the time that we budget, we don't necessarily have the reporting from the various businesses and/or industries that fund that expense. And that growth is really desired, much desired, because it means we're experiencing growth in our businesses. But what we will do as part of the budget process is take each of these items, as well as other items in the budget, look to see how they are faring compared to last year, as well as the current year, to then plan for fiscal '25.
Thank you.
Could that possibly be because Xloy is now up and running?
Exploy is up, and we actually had a performance agreement with them that we rebated part of their tax each year until they reached the particular threshold, but they've been doing very well.
Okay, good. Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Resolution 2024-02 as written.
Second.
And may I have a roll call for that, please, ma'am?
Mr. East?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. Ratliff?
Aye.
Mr. Clontz?
Aye.
Mr. Reese?
Aye.
Okay. In Resolution 2024-03, that would be resolution appointing members to the Planning Commission.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve Resolution 2024-03, resolution reappointing Anthony Schrantz to the Town of Pulaski Planning Commission.
Second.
And may I have a roll call for that?
Mr. East?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. Ratliff?
Aye.
Mr. Clontz?
Aye.
Mr. Reese?
Aye.
Okay. Now we'll move to Ordinance 2024-03, adding Chapter 34, Article 2, Section 34 to the Town of Pulaski Code of Ordinances.
Yes, and council, there is a section of the code that failed to, under its current composition, to indicate the membership of the board, and which shall be 7 members. And interestingly, something that we talked about earlier, it does say the director shall be appointed to serve for 4-year staggered terms. So your concern about all of them being appointed for the same period of time, date-wise, is handled with the adoption of this particular section of the ordinance. And this is the section that currently speaks to the IDA. We subsequently have an item that would change the name of that organization from IDA to
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we pass ordinance 2024-03 as written.
Second.
And may I have a roll call for that, please, ma'am?
Mr. East?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. Ratliff?
Aye.
Mr. Clontz?
Aye.
Mr. Reese?
Aye.
Ordinance 2024-04, changing the name of the Industrial Development Authority of the Town of Pulaski, Virginia to the Economic Development Authority of the Town of Pulaski, Virginia. Do you need to say something? You did.
earlier, it's a more appropriate terminology for the function that your current IDA, as identified in the town code, provides for. Years ago, they were called industrial development because it was primarily industry that was being pursued. In today's world, talking about economic development gives it a totally different feel, because it can be anything that promotes economic development in your community. And so we are recommending that this name change occur. And I think most people will realize that the county has had an EDA that was formerly an IDA for many, many years. So we're just bringing ours up to current times.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt ordinance 2024-04 as written.
Second.
And may I have a roll call for that one?
Mr. East?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. Ratliff?
Aye.
Mr. Clontz?
Aye.
Mr. Reese?
Aye.
Next is Resolution 2024-04, resolution appointing members to the Economic Development Authority for the town of Pulaski.
I move we approve resolution 2024-04 as written.
Second.
And may I have a roll call for that?
Mr. East?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. Ratliff?
Aye.
Mr. Klontz?
Aye.
Mr. Reese?
Aye.
Next is the public comment period. I have no speaker slips, so. So we'll move to the consent agenda. Your consideration, up for your consideration is December 19th, 2023 Town Council meeting minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve town council meeting minutes for December 19th, 2023.
Second.
May I have a roll call for that one?
Mr. East?
Aye.
Mr. Clark?
Aye.
Mr. Dawson?
Aye.
Mr. Ratliff?
Aye.
Mr. Klontz?
Aye.
Mr. Reese?
Aye.
All righty. Now is the council comments. Mr. East, do you have anything?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have anything this evening. Thank you.
All righty then.
I do not have any.
Well,
Thank you.
okay.
Nothing tonight, sir.
Mr. Ratcliffe?
Just thank staff for the great work through December and to the snow removal group. I passed 4 o'clock this morning, worked all night long. Please, we greatly appreciate their work. Great staff.
Mr. Klontz?
Nothing this evening.
Mr. Reese?
Just a couple real small things. I was driving down East Main Street, and there's some telephone poles right next to that Jim Dandy Auto place. There's 2 of them real close to each other, and they're right next to the edge of the road. And I know that we don't move those, but I don't know why we need 2 of them there. And it seems like they're just not in a good place. And I'm just having the lights gone out in downtown, including at a town council meeting, because somebody's been running into telephone poles. It seems like maybe if we could move them a little bit further away from the road or remove them entirely, that would be great. I don't know if that's anything that the town, we can ask APCO to even just look at, would be great.
Oh, it'd be fairly nice. It gets hit all the time. It's been twice since I've taken over.
There's also I also wanted to say thanks to whoever came up with that solution for that leak. I know I've been complaining about for a long time on Washington and sorting that out before it got made a big sheet of ice on 5th and Washington. I know it's probably a temporary fix, but it solved the issue for the purposes of keeping people from sliding all over the road. So whoever came up with that,
Leak was actually higher up the street
oh, is it?
and coming down to that site and then settling there. But
Yeah, but it would just it was making a mess, and so whoever came up with that, I know it looked like they took them a couple runs, so I very much appreciate that. And then also I was wondering, I know this isn't maybe sort of out of scope here, but having gone through the presentation from Miss Music from Pulaski Area Transit, I was wondering if it might not be useful for council as we're going into budgeting season for us to consider asking some of the department heads to come in and do maybe not just give us an overview of their department. I think both for council and for the citizenry, it'd be good to know, what people are doing, what the departments look like, what future needs they might have. Just give them a chance to share what they're doing, what they'd like to do, things like that. I know that's sort of a long-term thing, but I know that we all got to dig into that budget, and I think we've all come up with a better appreciation for what goes into it. And I think that might be helpful when we're doing budgeting for our own departments going forward. And that's it for me. Thank you.
I will certainly put that particular item on. to
Yeah,
your
please.
Next town meeting.
I had, and I think we all got some thank yous from the employees for the added time off at Christmas. And I think a lot of us replied and said, you don't need to thank us, you earn it, I mean, it's like to give back to them too, because they do. They work very hard. We have a good staff. And I just want them to know how much we appreciate them too. I mean, they're behind the scenes, and people don't know how hard a lot of them work. So But just thank you for all you all do too. That's pretty much it for now. All right, it's your turn.
Well, I don't know that anybody can think or talk about a subject other than snow and freezing temperatures. With what we have experienced in the last several days and what evidently is coming our way. But I appreciate the comments, particularly Mr. Radcliffe, yours about seeing people at 4:30 in the morning. I was on the phone with our Public Works people last night and then again at 5 o'clock this morning to determine the condition of our streets to then make a decision as to whether or not we should ask our employees to come in on time or should have them come in a little bit later, even though I knew that the county had made a decision early on. Certainly our ability to clear our own streets as a town is clearly a service that most people don't appreciate until you have an incident like we had last night. But I think if you traveled our streets this morning and even last night, you will see that our Public Works people did a magnificent job, and they did work all night in that snow and with those temperatures. And I'm sure, even if I were to knock on wood, that we will have some water main breaks during this cold spell. In fact, people should be letting their faucets drip a little bit for the next couple of days in order to avoid the freezing of those pipes. And then later, when those pipes that are frozen thaw, we generally have issues. And those same men will be out there in that bitter weather, making sure that our streets are clear and that people have water. And you're certainly correct, Mr. Mayor. It's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that they don't get credit for, and they certainly deserve both the holidays and the bonus that you all were willing to give. And I will tell you that that was one holiday that they didn't get called out. Last year, this time, they were out every single day of the Christmas holiday with water breaks. So it was a present relief. Now, we had a holiday yesterday, and they had to be out because of that, but certainly that longer weekend was very important to them. We do expect to have some bitter days, and the county emergency management people are opening the gym for some folks who may need to have shelter. And of course, we know that our Take It to the Streets will be fully operational over the next several days, as they have been when the temperatures have dropped to a certain level as required by our ordinance. I would like to mention that will be something that will occur next month, but I will try to work with the new town manager to schedule. We normally in January, and just haven't had the time this January, have a service awards activity where we recognize those employees with 5, 10, 15, and other multiples. And I know the last one we had, the council reacted very positively about being involved in that, and I'd like to suggest to Mr. Day that he do that again this year. It would involve you all coming in a little bit earlier, just because we wouldn't want people to have to stay over, and some of those people don't work past 3:30, others don't work past 5. So we'll be looking to see what's a convenient time for you to do that. And it might be appropriate, if you all are willing, to provide some extra time on that day to take at least one, if not two, quick tours of 2 projects that I think are very important to our future. One is the work that's being done at the landfill to finish off our new firing range, as well as the location of the K-9 facility, which will be a regional facility that has been funded in your budget. The other is the Public Works operation. I think it's critical, as you talk about looking at budgets, that you all have the opportunity to see the condition under which your Public Works employees are working. We've done an awful lot of work with the ARPA money to create better equipment and better vehicles for our people, but the physical condition of the buildings in which they operate is really pitiful. In the presentation that you had at your December meeting by the finance person, you may have remembered that there isn't an out year, probably beyond 5, the idea of replacing or renovating that facility. But you all were, I think, appropriately impressed when you visited the fire station, as well as the police department location, and I think getting to see those facilities could be very important as you plan for future budgets. So those are a couple of things that I'll put on the list for Mr. Day when he comes. And this is my last official meeting with you all. I am hanging around at your request to assist in the transition. But I think you all have one more item that you were going to mention, which is the move
For the date.
the meeting, its normal date on the 6th, in order that the mayor as well as the new town manager have the opportunity to attend a reception in Richmond on the normal meeting of our meeting of February the 6th. So with that, I think that's all the comments that I have.
So if someone would like to make a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we modify or move the scheduled meeting, our first scheduled meeting of February, from February 6th to February 8th, at a time that will be promulgated as usual.
Second.
And may I have a roll call, please, for that?
Reese,
Aye.
Mr. Clark,
Aye.
Mr. Dawson,
Aye.
Mr. Ratliff,
Aye.
Mr. Klontz,
Aye.
Mr. Reese.
Aye.
I also want to thank you, Ms. Burcham, for the 3 years that you've given us. It's not, yeah, it's, but who's counting? But who's counting? It's not been easy, I'm sure, at all, because we were in a mess. But we do appreciate what you've given us back. You've helped us to get our town back in order. I hope that you'll be here for some of the meetings next month to help get started and stuff. May not be the smoothest transition, but I'm thinking with your notes that it'll be pretty smooth. But I just wanted to tell you that we appreciate you. But with that, just a reminder of the next council meeting. That will be February 8th, 2024. Closed session will begin at 5:30, open session at 7. And as there's nothing else on my agenda, I declare this meeting adjourned.